Our hero Reva had valiantly slain the enemy of his family, but now for his own safety his mother had urged him to flee from the vengeance of their enemy's relatives. Reva rode west and met his uncle Gesta. He explained what happened, and Gesta was delighted his nephew had come to stay. He asked Reva what his hobbies were, what his skills were. He'd have to find something to do in his new home. Reva replied he had no skills at all, but his uncle did not believe this. He said, "I think that you are a master of some skill, and we shall soon work out what that is." One day Reva was carving a small wooden bobbin out of a piece of wood. His uncle watched him and noticed that when cutting the wood, he always cut it perfectly. "I think that you will be a master craftsman. Let us put you to the test. I want you to build me a boat." Reva thought about this, and he said, "Get me lots of wood. Get me good tools. If it doesn't turn out well, I don't want to blame it on my supplies. Also, I'm going to build this secretly. If it turns out well, I don't want people claiming another man taught me how to build it." Gesta built a shed for Reva and supplied him with tools, timber, and a forge for making iron nails. Reva thanked him and set to work. For 3 months he woke up early each day and worked late into the evening. He did not tell anyone about the progress of his projects. Gesta's servants inspected Reva's work one night and reported the boat was looking very, very good, the best they had ever seen in Iceland. 2 months later, Reva slept very late one day and did not go to the shed. His uncle asked him, "Is the boat ready?" And Reva said, "I suppose so. She'll float. You can take a look if you'd like." Gesta and Reva went privately to look. They went alone just in case the boat was absolutely awful and embarrassing. When he saw what his nephew had built, though, he was astonished. This was not just a normal boat. It was a gigantic ocean-going cargo ship, the largest ever seen in Iceland. Gesta was amazed at his nephew's skills, particularly because this was the first thing he'd ever built. He said, "How did you work out how to build such a magnificent steed of the waves?" Reva said, "Many years ago, a Norwegian boy stayed at my house and we shared our toys. He had a small toy ship which he let me play with. I simply memorised it and built a gigantic version of it." His uncle congratulated him and said Reva should keep this magnificent ship himself as a reward for his work. Everybody was astonished at this secret skill Reva possessed, and everything was well, at least for a while, because next spring a Norwegian man named Gelir came to the area. He was boisterous, he played games and sports, but was far too competitive. Now one day Gelir approached Reva and challenged him to play sports. Reva said he had no interest in playing sports. Gelir challenged him to wrestle, and Reva had no interest in wrestling. Gelir leapt off his horse and he attacked Reva. "Coward! How dare you not wrestle with me when I want to? Now we shall fight whether you like it or not." He grabbed Reva and tried to throw him down to the ground, but Reva was too big and strong. Gelir tried with all his strength but failed. Reva just bided his time, waiting for a weak point in Gelir's attack. Then suddenly, he grabbed Gelir's belt with one hand, he grabbed his shoulder with the other, and threw his foe to the hard, frozen ground. Gelir was so furious, he went back to his horse, he grabbed a spear, but rather than skewer Reva, he instead gave him an almighty whack on the shoulder and a whack on his head, though he was not seriously injured. Gelir then rode home laughing and began to spread slanderous gossip about Reva. He told everyone he met that he'd struck Reva with 2 powerful blows and that Reva was too much of a coward to avenge the injury. Reva, however, continued to behave calmly. He acted as if he did not know that such shameful things were being said about him. He instead decided to calmly wait until the ideal opportunity presented itself to repay Gelir for his cruel words. One day Reva was preparing his ship for sail, preparing rigging and tarring the hull. Then he heard Gelir approaching. He knew this was the perfect time to strike, so he hid beneath the ship, and he leapt out with no other weapons than his tools. He calmly said to Gelir, "Now I shall repay you for your 2 blows with 1. He struck Galair with one blow from his tool, killing the man instantly. Galair's wolf wine splurted from the wound and drenched his companions, who ran away in terror, whilst Rever calmly returned to working on his ship before he went home. His uncle said, "You look like Fortune's favourite. What's the news?" And Rever said, "The goddess of shields was reddened in Galair's gore. The stroke this day was struck. I felled that famous man. I reckon 2 blows revenged, and hot blood won for the Raven. Such deeds are told in stories related by wise men." Gesta congratulated Rever. He'd heard of Galair's boastful bragging about the fight, and he was pleased that Rever had silenced his foe of any more shameful words. He warned his nephew he would now have to leave. Galair's friends would try and hunt him down. He gave his nephew supplies and a crew for his ship, along with many fine expensive gifts, befitting a skilled and brave man. As Rever left, his uncle said, "I think that you are destined to leave Iceland forever. I hope that one day you'll have your own saga written about your adventures. You are destined for great achievements." Rever then left Iceland, never to return. He sailed west across the Whale Road and went to a newly discovered land across the sea, a wilderness known as Greenland.